Ready?
Ready on the left? Yep. Ready on the right? Ready on the fire line?
I'd like to call the meeting to order. Roll call.
Mayor Liggins.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Smith.
Here.
Councilmember Davies.
Here.
Councilmember Pecky.
Here.
Councilmember Bodencourt. Here. Everyone is present. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, I'd like to invite you to stand for the invocation offered by Pastor Augusto Ramos from the Church of the Nazarene.
Let us pray. Father God, we thank you for this evening, Lord. We thank you, God, that you've given us an opportunity to come together, Lord, and to be able to do and fulfill the responsibilities that you've given to us, both as leaders in the community and just citizens of Tehachapi. God, we lift up this evening all of our emergency responders, Lord. We lift up all of our educators, our ministers, Lord. We lift up our business owners to you, Lord. We lift up, again, all of our citizens here in Tehachapi. We pray, Lord, for the leaders here this evening who will be making decisions and doing and discussing things that are for the benefit and for the best of our community. So, Lord, we lift them up to you this evening. Thank you again for this time, Lord. Blessed be in it, Lord. We pray these things in your name. Amen.
Amen. And please remain standing as Ms. Bodencourt leads us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Salute, pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. You may be seated. At this time, we'll consider the consent agenda. All items listed with an asterisk are considered to be routine and non-controversial by city staff. Consent items will be considered first and may be approved by one motion if no member of the council or audience wishes to comment or ask questions. If comment or discussion is desired by anyone, the item will be removed from the consent agenda and will be considered in listed sequence with an opportunity for any member of the public to address the city council before action is taken. Okay.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, sir?
on behalf of Councilmember Davies, he lives within 500 feet of the item, it's number 10. He's going to recuse himself. As long as that stays on the consent agenda, he can recuse himself, and when he votes, he's voting on all other items except that item.
Okay. Does anyone from the audience wish to remove anything from the consent agenda? Council?
No. Motion on consent as presented.
Seconded. Moved and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Let the record show it was a 5-0 vote. Oh, I'm sorry, except for item 10.
Good.
The City Council welcomes public comments on any items within the subject matter jurisdiction of the council. We respectfully request that this public forum be utilized in a positive and constructive manner. Persons addressing the council should first state their name and area of residence, the matter of city business on the agenda, and the organization if they represent anyone. Questions on non-agenda items directed to the council or staff should first be submitted to the city clerk in written form no later than 5 p.m. on the Monday, preceding the council meeting. No action can be taken by the council on matters not listed on the agenda. And we limit your comments to 3 minutes. Are there any comments from the public?
Hi, my name is Jim Wallace, Golden Hills resident, and I'm here on behalf of the Tehachapi Police Foundation to cordially invite the council to our 3rd annual Honoring the Thin Blue Line, which will be May 16th at our Rose Garden Estates from 6 to 9 with dinner at 7, and you're cordially invited. I have your invitations.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public?
Hello, Pete Graff City. Last week, about a week and a half ago, I actually placed a request to be placed on agenda, and I did not hear anything back, email, phone call, or anything. What would I go about finding out the reason why I was not even denied? Is that a question for you, Greg, or?
The council sets the agenda, so we've not received a request. I'm assuming it's a letter you sent asking for your appeal once again.
Yes, it is.
And the council has heard this item 3 or 4 times. So at this point, there's no action.
But what do you, so you're just not gonna, you're at all, you're not gonna respond to me any?
I take my direction from the city council, and they've told you several times now.
They haven't told me anything. The attorneys have spoke. They haven't told me anything. And if you are going to tell me something, then before you do that, I'm going to ask why you don't honor the agreement between the union, police union, and the city council. There was an agreement made that you make the arrangements and that you hear it. Why are you not honoring that?
We really can't comment on this.
He just said you have made comments, and I'd like to know what they are.
That was the correct comment.
Then they can't.
Yeah.
So there's answers, but you can never answer a question, and you're never going to hear me, so I can never ask the questions. So what's my action then, Tom?
There's not much else you can do.
Why? So I just can't. I'm not going to be heard. They're not going to hear their agreement. I'm not going to get my rights, and you just say there's nothing else you can do. We're just not going to hear what was my rights.
You've had your rights.
So you heard my
we're not gonna
I'm
get
sorry,
into a
wait second,
narrative.
Susan. I mean, he's saying I've had my rights. My rights are to be heard by city council. Not one of you have heard me. 2 of you were present when I was wrongfully terminated. And why don't you have the nerve to hear me? It's simple. Because you don't want the truth to come out. You don't want me to come out and say what's actually being ran by this man. You don't want to hear what's going on over there. So why don't you hear me?
We're not going to respond to those questions.
So you're simply just going to deny me my rights that...
We're not responding.
You can look at me and answer. That's a yes
We
or
are
no.
not responding to this request.
Okay, so rights, civil rights, employee rights, all that, it just doesn't matter anymore.
You're almost out of time.
Well, I'm sure I am because you're sitting here stoned. Phil, what do you have to say? You were there.
I believe that you've been afforded all the rights and whatever you need to do to bring this before the proper authorities, and that time has expired. This has not...
What time? What part of this policy, what part of the information are you reading that I'm not?
As delineated by the attorney multiple times.
That was in reference to a case matter for a civil litigation. This has nothing to do with civil litigation. This has to do with an agreement between the police union and the city council members.
If you...
You can't quote that and write on that. It doesn't apply.
I would recommend that there be no conversation back and forth now.
All right, we're just not allowed to comment, Pete. I'm sorry.
You're sorry? Well, you're the one that said you had my back 110% when I came forward with stuff.
You're out of time.
You remember sending those texts?
We have no more comments, Mr. Kraft.
Now all of a sudden you don't got my back anymore, do you?
I need you to, you're out of time.
I'm out of time.
Yes, sir.
This is not over. I mean, I'm going to continue until you people are held to your job. You have a job to do. And if you're not going to do it...
You're out of time.
No, listen for a second. If you're not going to do it, I will do everything in my power to remove you. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the public?
This way.
The great thing about Carol Way, Clint Davies, sorry for how tall it was. The great thing that happened when apartheid ended in South Africa was they didn't have war crimes trials. They didn't put people in jail and all this stuff. They had what they call truth and reconciliation. I watched this drama go on for almost 9 months now. It's a bunch of bullshit. Everybody needs to step up.
Yeah, I need you to please watch your language. We're in a public meeting.
I'm trying to, well, then please listen and hear me, please, thank you.
You need to talk to us, not the audience.
Here's the thing, you don't have to filter for which these people want to be heard, okay? I'm talking to everybody in this room because I respect everybody in this room equally. You know, this whole Shiva stuff is going on. It's too small of a town. Why are we doing this? You know what I mean? Like, we need to find an agreement
a middle ground. I'm so tired of this. So that's my comment. Thank you. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you. Any other comments from the audience?
Susan Forster, City of Tehachapi. Question with all the news going on about sanctuary cities and they're going to want to...
We can't hear you, I'm sorry.
Sorry. My question is, where is the City of Tehachapi in regards to the amicus brief for us not wanting to be a sanctuary city?
There was a hearing held about a month ago, and we're waiting for the judge's decision now.
Oh, okay.
It has to do with appealing the lower court decision, which supported generally the state's position.
Okay, so it's moving forward.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Any other comments from the audience?
Mike Upper, City of Tehachapi. I want to talk to you about a couple things. First of all, I'd ask that the city start planning for widening the roads on Valley, Denison, Curry, and Tehachapi Boulevard all the way out to the freeway and to Red Apple for Tehachapi. So it's 2 lanes each way. If we're going to add 1,200 new places to live, that's going to increase the traffic, and we need to be proactive and not reactive. It's already bad enough on Valley every morning, in Valley, Denison area, every morning when school's in session and everybody's going to school and everybody gets out of school in the afternoon. Second thing, I hadn't really planned on talking about it, but I've heard 3 different meetings, either been here in person or something, and I keep hearing about the union's right. As a former FAC rep, which is a former union representative, if I had an issue with the contract not being upheld, I would have already talked to you. And the fact that the union here speaks volume, the union is not here, speaks volumes to me that they don't feel that this agreement is not being honored. And the last thing, this is a personal thing. Our town is losing what I consider a treasure. And that treasure comes in the form of energy that a person gives to this town. And Michelle Vance, who's my friend and who I work with on Measure R, has announced that she's leaving the city of Tehachapi to go to Colorado. People don't really realize everything that Michelle Vance has done for the city, whether it's EDC, the parks, numerous charity, including the hospital fundraiser that just raises $160,000, the Grand Fondo. The city has benefited from her work and her volunteer and her endless energy. And I would ask that you guys, as the city council, have a formal proclamation acknowledging everything that she has done for our city. We are truly losing the go-getter and a motivator in this town. And I know some people don't understand what they're losing when she has announced her loss. And I would just ask that you guys consider making a proclamation recognizing everything she has done for the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the audience? If not, we'll move on to number 5. Disbursements and bills for RSI Petroleum from March 26, 2019 through April 9, 2019.
Madam Mayor, I need to recuse myself because I'm an employee of RSI Petroleum.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion to proceed with paying the invoice to RSI as presented by staff.
A second. It's been moved and seconded as recommended by staff. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Let the record show it's a 4-0 vote. We're getting faster at this. Airport manager reports, build-to-plane project and lease agreement.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and council members. The City of Tehachapi was recently approached by the Tehachapi Society of Pilots for rental of a portion of the airport maintenance hangar for use in the build-a-plane educational project. High school students can sign up for the program, which offers the opportunity to learn about aerospace design, manufacturing, safety, and flight operations from FAA licensed pilots and technicians. These students can receive credit through the Kern County Superintendent of Schools, and the program is in full compliance with the airport's hangar use and inspection policy. As the council is aware, the maintenance hangar currently houses the airport's fuel testing equipment, maintenance supplies, and lawnmower. After meeting with TSP volunteers, staff has developed a plan to safely keep our equipment in the hangar and out of reach of the students and still allow enough room for certain build-a-plane operations. We recommend a lease rate of $72 per month. This is a reduced rate based upon ground lease rates rather than rental rates. So we recommend that you approve the lease agreement between the City of Tehachapi and the Tehachapi Society of Pilots and authorize the mayor to sign subject to approval of the city manager and city attorney. That being said, we have Bob Myers and Paul Knapsinger here with a short little presentation for you.
Great.
Good evening. Oh, is that So as Ashley mentioned, I'm Bob Meyer, I'm the president of the Tehachapi Society of Pilots. And you may or may not be aware that we've had a build-a-plane project with local students for actually about a year and a half. And so we just want to give you a little bit of background on what we're doing. Uh-oh, I hit the wrong button.
Yeah. Did you hit the blackout button?
I didn't think so.
There we go.
So the project has involved about 20 students over 2 semesters with about 11 currently active. And we typically have about 8 show up any given day to work on the airplane. One student that's involved in this has been hired as an intern at a Antelope Valley Aircraft Maintenance Facility. And other students have expressed interest in pursuing aerospace and aviation careers as a result of the experience. The project has also resulted in favorable exposure for the city itself. Bakersfield channels 23 and 29 have had coverage of our activity in a very favorable light. Similarly, when Vince Fong came up to visit several months ago to kind of see the activity. And we've gotten a lot of favorable news articles as well. The plans that we have are to complete the current aircraft, and it's a kit aircraft made by a company called Zenith, and provide the students with an opportunity to fly in it after it's complete. And then what we'd like to do is construct a second aircraft in parallel with flying the first. So we'll have one flying and one they can work on at the same time. This is an activity that took place last week, actually, down in Bakersfield, the Kern County Fair. This is a symposium, and we took the airplane as it's progressed so far and had a display down there with the students' staff, and it was very favorably received. Got a lot of good publicity out of it. So the request that we have, which Ashley has already talked about, is the lease of the airport maintenance building for the build-a-plane project. And let's see, I think, is this the pointer? Yeah, so it's not working very well, but the circle shows the building that's right next to the fuel pit. This will be less costly for us, less impactful parking. It'll be for the students when they show up, they'll be able to park outside the fence instead of inside. And it should be a more permanent location for us now. We're in a hangar that we rent right now, and that's costing us a fair bit each month. So that's the background on what we're doing. Any questions?
Any questions from the audience? Yes, sir.
My name is Carl Garrick. I live in the city of Tehachapi. I had the opportunity many, many years ago to be the prison guard at DVI, which had an aircraft A&P, to get an A&P license for inmates. And it was an excellent program. I even one time was monitoring to the phone, and a lady called me up and said, "I'd like to register my son in your institution." So they could come to get their AP license. And I told her she had to see the judge. Anyway, hey, as a supervisor in education at one time when I was a babysitter at a child development center, that's a good name, right?
Yeah.
This is a fabulous program. I'd rather see you do it at our airport than at DVI. But I'd like you to consider to reduce the weight as long as they are building it. $1 a month, as long as they're building the airplane and having students, I'd like to see the rate reduced. I tell you guys, it's better for them to do it here than Tracy.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from the audience? Council?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I got a question. Does the city have any liability in this at all?
There's liability in everything we do.
Exactly.
Except that Tehachapi Society Pilots has agreed to our standard insurance policy requirements, which is $1 million.
Okay.
Everybody that leases land as a hangar on the airport is required to carry that policy.
Okay.
The same would be here also.
Okay, great. That's all I have. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
And I have a question. I don't know if I missed something, but is this a granted program, or how are you getting your funding? Granted?
Yes. Yes, it is a grant. We have an anonymous donor that gave us a grant to purchase the aircraft kit.
Thank you.
Do we have any leeway on the $72? I know, is the $72, is that for the entire square footage or the portion they're using?
The portion they're using now, that being said, that is reduced compared to the hangar rental rate, but we do have some leeway. We can charge a reduced rate to any aviation secondary or post-secondary education programs, which they do receive credit from the current superintendent of schools. So as long as the airport or civil aviation receives reasonable, tangible, or intangible benefits from such use. So at the council's pleasure.
So we have the latitude to reduce it from the 72 as well?
Correct.
I propose $1, just to have it on the record if we could, $1, you know.
Okay. Mr. Hickey?
I have no comments. You got a comment in the audience, so.
Mr. Sandy, were you raising your hand? Thank you.
George Sandy, resident since '88, and one of the founders of the TSP. I would like to thank the council for their consideration of this idea and the gentleman's suggestion to reduce it to $1. And I would support that also, because if we move in with a school into that building, we'll be making a very significant improvement to the building. Mainly a 45-foot bifold door, which is not cheap, but it's a good investment on the part of the TSP and the city looking to the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments from the council?
I agree with Councilman Smith. Anytime we can get young people involved, that, keep the costs down so they can get involved. And I appreciate your time in helping these young men and women move forward. And Like you said, you've already had some people move forward in aviation, so I think anytime we can do as a city to help support our youth, I think it's a good thing.
Okay, anyone want to make a motion regarding that?
Make a motion.
Move, do I have a second?
I'll second it, Madam Mayor.
All right, and that.
That's for the $1.
That's for the one,
$1,
okay. All right. All right. All in favor, as presented by staff, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Madam Mayor, I will abstain from voting on this particular matter.
Thank you. Show that as a four ayes and an abstention, please. All right. I haven't had a chance to go out there. I'm planning on it, but where else can you go and learn to build an airplane? Shoot.
It's rare.
Yeah, it's a great thing. All right, Civil Air Patrol lease agreement.
Madam Mayor and council members, just like the item before, this is a great partnership here. The city of Tehachapi was recently approached by the Civil Air Patrol, Tehachapi Composite Squadron 46 Cadet Program for use of a portion of the airport pilot's lounge. Civil Air Patrol's cadet program was established in 1942 to transform youth into dynamic Americans and aerospace leaders through a curriculum that focuses on leadership, aerospace fitness, and character. Currently, the squadron leases one trailer and ground space for 2 additional trailers on the east side of the airport, which we refer to as 6E. The trailers are in bad shape and nearing or past their end of life. The airport's pilot's lounge, which was once used as the primary office for airport operations, has an available office, storage room, and conference room, which would suit the needs of the squadron. The squadron has asked to use the now vacant areas to be used on Tuesdays from 4 to 7 p.m. for meetings and 2 to 3 times per month for mandated Saturday activities. The terminal will remain open to transient and local pilots during this time. As a condition to the lease, the Civil Air Patrol will provide weekly cleaning services to the pilot's lounge and remove the 2 trailers belonging to the organization within 6 months of commencement of the lease. We believe this is a wonderful opportunity, just like the last agreement. As for the fiscal impact, we will not charge any rent because we will be saving approximately $250 a month in cleaning services with our janitorial staff, so in kind. So, all right, get my recommendation here to approve the lease agreement between the City of Tehachapi and the Civil Air Patrol, and authorize the mayor to sign subject to approval of city manager and city attorney. And we have 2 ladies here from the Civil Air Patrol to give you a quick presentation on that.
Hi, good evening. My name is Shannon. I'm the Deputy Commander for Squadron 46 and the historian, and this is Melissa Hughes, Major Hughes. She's our Aerospace Education and Fitness Officer. Thank you, Ms. Whitmore. You've covered just about everything. Recently, we did approach the city to see about using the airport terminal building. As she said, we use 3 trailers in our location. One of the trailers has become not useful. It's the city trailer. A couple of years ago in the storms, there was some water damage to the trailer, and it's become an environmental concern for our cadets. That was one of our classrooms, one of our flight halls. So at this time, we're all kind of crammed into the other 2 trailers, one for flight, and the other trailers now become storage because we have no heat and we have no air conditioning. So most of us operate administratively in one little office in the middle trailer. Pending council approval, as Ms. Whitmore said, we'd like to host our Tuesday night meetings in the airport terminal building, and we believe that this would provide kind of a security for the building, an active presence in the building, and the pilot lounge would remain open to all pilots who are welcome. We would love to have them and love to have them visit our cadets. Oh, goodness. Also, relocation to the airport building. We're very concerned about cadet safety, and honestly, the interior, the inside bathroom would be wonderful because right now our cadets have to go from the trailers down to the little portable toilet, and that requires a wingman or a chaperone, and we have very Civil Air Patrol rules when it comes to us adults in the presence of children. We have something that's called 2D, where 2 people have to be in the presence of another cadet. So we're very safe. We also would like to propose putting an ADA compliant ramp at the front for people that have disabilities. We'll work with the city on that. couple of us have some issues, mobility issues, the commander and myself, and we would like to make that a little easier for disabled people inside and outside the building.
For those of you that aren't familiar with CAP and our mission, our organization benefits young people and our community. We have 4 primary educational aspects that we work on at our meetings every week that foster the growth of young men and women in our community. Those areas are safety, emergency services, including first aid, command center, communication, and search and rescue operations for the community. We also do aerospace, aviation, rocket science, and cybersecurity education programs via lecture and hands-on stuff. That's part of our curriculum. I train them in PT, trying to make sure that they're living a healthy lifestyle and preparing for joining the military if they decide to go that direction, with a focus on nutrition and wellness as well, and conditioning activities, conditioning is what we call it, we do PT, as well as character development for mental and physical health is led by a chaplain. We have a color guard whose pictures you guys may have seen up there, soon to be an honor guard. They support the community whenever able for parades, funeral details, we do wreaths across America, stuff like that. We also do celebrations, school graduations, and the LA County Air Show. Our color guard has a great reputation. They're often referred by other CAP units or Navy Sea Cadets units to provide services for, such as for the Air Force Band of the Golden West concerts, Pearl Harbor Remembrance Day, Antelope Valley Jethawks opening game, which we had a picture of up there, and other local events. So we provide a great service and reflection on our youth and our community. I'd also like to thank the council for being so receptive and supportive of the aviation community. There's a huge pilot shortage right now, a huge shortage of qualified maintainers, so your support is helping my industry very much with that. So thank you for your support.
Interestingly, one of our cadets participates in the Build a Plane program, and he would like to go to the Air Force Academy, of which Major Hughes is an alumni. So we're extremely appreciative of the opportunity to come here and speak with you folks. We would welcome you to come visit us on Tuesday nights, and we respectfully request that you consider us utilizing your terminal building. So, thank you very much.
Do you have any questions?
Any questions from the audience? Yes?
George Sandy again. I'd like to recommend this move 100%. The CAP has been my very next door neighbor and a wonderful bunch of young people. And on the occupancy of the pilot lounge, I'd like the city to give some consideration to making it primarily a pilot's lounge in joint use with these cadets, perhaps a sign that would explain it that way, but I'm interested in keeping the facilities open for visiting pilots. I've been stranded in a lot of airports in my career without any facilities, and this one is exceptional. We have those very nice, comfortable reclining seats. We have a shower, hot and cold, and we used to have coffee in a little cooking facility and ice, a freezer and a refrigerator. And we also had computerized connection for the pilots to file flight plans. Well, all of those wonderful little facilities and inducements to visit there have disappeared. So I'd like to see in this overall plan if we can't enhance the facilities again for the visiting pilots. Because in days past, we had a great big chalkboard on the wall, and people couldn't find room on there to write their compliments about their visits to Tehachapi Airport, all pilots. So I just wanted to throw that in the mix, and maybe we can work jointly with the cadets, and they can maybe oversee and maintain some of these facilities, which will someday probably accrue to their use. And I thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Major Carl Garrett, Civil Air Patrol. Let me tell you something about the trailers. I'm the guy that bought them. Around 1986, they were the construction trailers out at CCI for level 4. They were brought used there. They came used here, and we put them at the west end of the airport, remember? And then the CBs moved them to where they are now. These trailers have been, man, they're old. I mean, who knows? They probably were came from the 70s. When did they start? CCI. They were used when they took them to CCI, and they spent, what, 5 or 6 years there. And so, hey, the trailers have long lived their purpose, and most of us have just kind of barbed wire them back together again. I'm not as active as I used to. Now my age has kind of kept up with me a little bit. But anyway, guys, that's on the trailers. It's power and clown, yes, great. But the trailers have well used there.
Thank you.
Mike Butler, City of Tehachapi, Air Force veteran, air traffic controller, and the mission of Civil Air Patrol has helped me numerous times throughout my career. For those of you who don't know, when the plane goes down, you get a little beacon and it goes off. And oftentimes it's pilots that work with Civil Air Patrol that go out and do search and rescue to find those lost pilots or downed pilots. So anything we can do to make this organization stronger not only helps us as a city, but it helps the flying public and helps the citizens of our country. So I encourage you guys to support this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jim Jacobs, District 5. Thanks for the shout out, ladies from Reach Across America. I can't tell you enough how responsible these kids are that go out there and work with Civil Air Patrol. Last year, we were fortunate enough to have Reach Across America gave us an extra 200 wreaths. All our veterans in our cemeteries had already received their wreaths. Upon their own accord, they loaded all the extras into a truck and took them down to Bakersfield National, and personally placed them because Bakersfield National didn't have enough to go around. Don't know why, but that's off the subject here. But they did an outstanding job for stepping forward and honoring our veterans. So I would recommend that you guys do what you can to help the Civil Air Patrol.
Thank you. Any other comments from the audience? Council?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I'm sorry, Mr. Kim, how many cadets do we have?
Oh goodness, we've had as high as 19, and right now we're floating about 8. Microphone. Right now we're floating at about 8. We've lost a couple cadets, mainly through, I want to call it attrition, high school sports, confirmation at church, jobs, going away to college, or enlisting in the military. So
How are we promoting this?
we do recruitment events. We help out at the Harvest Festival, the Mountain Festival every year. We do parking. We have a recruitment booth there. We've done some recruitment when we had the Celebration of Flight 1 year ago. We had a recruitment booth set up there. We did some patron services, helping people figure out where they're going. When we've done the LA County Air Show, we have recruitment there as well. And then the T-Town Rumble over at Heritage Oak School. We've done some recruitment there as well. A lot of it is word of mouth. And just trying to, get kids involved. A lot of our kids are homeschooled, and that gives them the freedom to do some of the travel and events that we do, like encampment. We do a basic cadet school, airman training school. So it becomes like a tight-knit family, and we welcome new members as they come in. So.
Great, thank you.
Let's go for money.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. One of the trailers that's at the airport belongs to the city of Tehachapi, and that's the one of the 2 or 3 that will be condemned. Our trailer will be, the city's trailer will be condemned, basically.
Yes, I was actually our airport manager, but yes, you're correct. There are 3 trailers. 2 were owned by the Civil Air Patrol, 1 by the city of Tehachapi, and the intent is to remove all 3 trailers and dispose of them.
Okay, the Civil Air Patrol have put in the agreement, or I guess we've put in the agreement, a timeline of 6 months to try to get those taken care of is that on both our side and on the Civil Air Patrol side? I know getting rid of mobile home trailers can be a little more complicated than just somebody coming in with a truck and a hitch. Is that a realistic timeline? And if we think that it's not, let's just adjust the agreement to reflect that, as soon as practicable, we'll get those out of there. I hate to lock you folks into something that says within 6 months those trailers will be gone, and it hasn't happened.
We are trying desperately. We've contacted the California wing to see about relocating the trailers, and they said, oh no, those belong to you, that's your problem. So that's going to be an immense financial undertaking. We have about $2,000 to get us through a year, and that's actually a lot of money right now, and we use that money to get our cadets who are in financial need off to encampment. That's like basic training. It's about 7 days to 10 days, depending on whether they're cadets in the basic or if they're staffing the event. So we would welcome any help that the city could provide us in getting those trailers off of the property, because I can't imagine that they're going to be anything other than condemned as well. So I actually thought maybe we could get Burning Man people to come and take them off to the desert. We have a ton of memorabilia and artifacts, which as a historian I'm really into, so I reached out to the wing too to see about how do we get this stuff archived in a way that it can be saved for Civil Air Patrol history, Tehachapi history. We have so much stuff in there that we want to keep because we cannot relocate it over to the terminal. So we have a lot of irons in the fire right now. What can we offload? What can we give other squadrons? What can we get the wing to help us with? And the last one is not much. So I reached out to Ben's, I reached out to a couple places, and it doesn't seem like anybody's really going to be able to help us with getting those trailers out of there. So I guess my next stop is going to be cranes and mobile home movers and see if somebody can help us out.
That would be an immense help, though.
Yes.
If we could remove that 6-month restriction, with as soon as practicable, we're making a good faith effort. It just seems like it's going to be cost prohibitive to do it in any quick manner. So if anybody has any ideas, we're all ears.
I would like to know if the city could move them when you move your trailer, if you could also take the other 2.
Well, I think, as an undertaking similar to what was offered to the Build a Plane folks with a favorable lease rate on the hangar, why don't we step up, and if we're going to move one or destroy or junk one trailer, why don't we just go ahead and throw the offer out to take care of the other 2 at the same time? In a similar fashion as the gesture that was made to the Build a Plane folks. If we're going to support aviation, let's support aviation across the board.
That would be immensely welcome, and we would really appreciate it. That's been a high stress point for us senior members trying to figure out how to get the cadets moved, how to get the trailers out of there.
But maybe a little more complicated because technically it's a piece of government property. So you would have to somehow figure out how internally from the Air Force side or the DOD or whoever handles that titling of trailers.
They stated it's us.
There you go, then that makes it eliminated about 50 steps of the process.
Yes.
If that could be somehow worked out and signed over to the city of Tehachapi, if we're all amicable to that issue, I think that that's something that the council should entertain.
Okay, we have a finance committee, so we can meet on Tuesday or the following Tuesday to discuss it. And then, if you guys want to talk a bit more about that, we'd be welcome to come back here, or sit down with you in office.
I can say half the finance committee's here, and we're both on board.
Yes, that's us.
I have a comment.
Yeah, go ahead.
Have you reached out to a salvage company that would come and get it for the salvage value?
I called one place, they didn't call me back. I emailed another place, they didn't email me back. And they all were in Los Angeles. I've had a little trouble trying to figure out where the salvage companies up here might be. other than the metal that it's on, I can't imagine it's very salvageable. So, you know, you can sit in them with winds and you can actually feel the building and you think, are we having an earthquake? Because they shift the floor, you know, the carpet's there, it has holes to walk on, you know, you can kind of feel them underneath.
There might be value to somebody, I don't know.
Yeah, and with all of the things that Tehachapi comes up with, it seems like we should be able to find someone who would really like to salvage those trailers. I'm throwing that out. I mean,
So these trailers,
or something, huh?
these mobile homes trailers, they've been giving me anxiety for years, actually. And I appreciate
us too.
The stronger partnership that we're forming this evening. I'd like to keep the 6 months in place. That way we have a target. We can work together and get it done. Certainly it's not going to happen overnight. It's going to take some real money to dispose of those three. What I'd like to do is suggest that you approve the item as presented this evening. There's no cost at this point to anybody. And we can come back to you at a later date with a suggested plan for removal of all three. What we don't have on the agenda is ours, but we want to get rid of all three. They're a blight, they're actually a safety concern. There's a whole horde of things that we should do. Just in one of them, you know, would suggest that we should dispose of them. We've outused the life of those trailers. So let us come back to you at a later date. We'll work together and we'll figure this out for sure.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion that we approve it as written and staff to come back with some alternate plans to meet the deadline. And
thank you very much.
And the recommendation is to the utilization of the power building for your future meetings.
Thank you.
So that's my motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded. Any other discussion? Then all in favor, as presented by staff and these wonderful ladies, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
And Madam Mayor, again, I will abstain on this. I heard a little bit of heckling from the audience, just to make my position very clear, because I had an interest in the airport and rent hangars and have a business at the airport. I feel it's better that I just abstain on this discussion, on this vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Please let the record show it was 4 ayes and 1 abstention. All right.
Thank you.
We'll look forward to working with you.
Us too. Thank you.
Number 9, Development Services Director reports. Filling in for.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm filling in for Jay tonight. The item in front of you is related to SB1. As most Californians know, SB1 was approved in 2017 to address basic road maintenance, rehabilitation, and critical safety needs to both the state and local streets and roads. In order to receive funds allocated to us, the city must provide the California Transportation Commission with a list of eligible projects each year. This list must be approved and adopted by resolution by the city of Tehachapi. City staff has identified various residential streets which have significant deficiencies and need to be repaired utilizing SB1 funds. We have just simply updated the list from last year, and you can see the list of areas there. The first one being Tehachapi Boulevard Rehabilitation Project. That's a continuation of previous years of rehabilitation and actually completion of Tehachapi Boulevard through downtown. We have numerous areas throughout the city for surface treatment. Pinion Street south of Highline and Curry Street east of Ponderosa. There's 13 streets there. Georgia Street south to East Abajo and Denison east to the city limits, 16 streets. Valley Boulevard north to Fur and Curry east to Clearview, that's 8 streets. And then also surface treatments of local streets, basically all downtown, and that's 9 streets. So the recommendation is that the City Council adopt a resolution approving the list of eligible projects proposed to receive funding for fiscal year 2019-2020 from the Road Maintenance and Rehabilitation Act account.
Okay.
I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Any questions from the audience concerning this?
Jim Jacobs, District 5. I'm glad this is on the agenda because part of my running around town looking for things, I noticed that a lot of our streets do not have lines in them. A good example is coming off of Mill Street at the freeway. We're choked down to one lane and then boom, we open up to 3 lanes. But people that come to town think it's one big lane. So if we painted the streets at the same time as we do this, that way everything is uniform. Another choke area is Valley and Tucker. People do not know how to turn left and right. People think that they can turn left or right from the bike lanes, which they're not supposed to. I'm just adding that the lines will be important for safety also. Thank you.
Susan Forrester, item B, could you kind of tell me, Georgia Street is the one that runs east off Denison by the...
that area, that whole item B is basically the KB track near the high school.
Okay, but what I'm not understanding is Georgia Street, which is the one that's by Mount Merritt, that runs east beside Mount Merritt Estates, the dirt road.
That's Pinion. That's Pinion.
No, that's...
I'm sorry, Valley.
That's Valley.
My mistake.
Oh,
Valley.
that's Valley.
Georgia is the southern end of the KB homes.
Okay, but I'm not understanding.
Sorry.
Okay, I don't understand, and Denison Road east to city limit, 16th Street. Denison runs north and south.
Yeah, it's from Denison east to the city limits. It's the KB homes.
Okay.
It's that item that we're talking about.
All right, thanks.
Sure.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the audience? Council?
This seems like a lot more streets than we've been able to do in past years. And I think we should, as you see on the highways, special projects being done from the funding from SB1. In your opening comment, you said, as most people in California know. I'm not sure everyone knows what SB1 is, so we should always have a sign for the project. These streets are being funded by SB1, and perhaps put it on our website what the SB1 funding, how it came about by taxpayers voting for it, and we're finally getting to see a little bit extra money for that on our local level, because we usually get money from the state and federal, and it's always going to an arterial or a highway, and neighborhoods are always last on the list, so this will be good for everybody. Thank you.
Yeah, I have just a comment. I know it sounds silly, but I'm going to say it. Can we make sure that we're organized and we're not painting the lines and then we put fresh oil over them? It happened last time, and I called the city, and I was very upset. We spent all this money, we did all that work on Tucker and Cherry, we painted the lines, and then 2 weeks later, we put fresh oil over them. I know, Mr. Marsh, you weren't involved with it, but I know it sounds silly, but let's make sure we schedule this right, please. I mean, we have paint crews and we have the asphalt crews. Let's make sure we coordinate. Thank you.
Thank you for that comment. If I may respond, that was a contractor decision, and when it happened, we were the same. We had the same kind of feeling. So after you repave, we had a couple weeks. You have to paint it so people know where to go. But then they come back and seal it with an oil, and then they came back and painted it.
I think you took my call.
We're right there with you. Yeah, absolutely.
All right, thank you, Mr. Garrett.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Mr. Garrett, I see that we're doing surface treatments. Surface treatments I'm assuming, and Don, maybe you can help, that's a slurry coat or a topical application rather than actually doing a relay of asphalt?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Do we have a plan in place to where somebody goes out and actually reviews all of those areas of pavement before we come in? And it's similar to what Mike said. If we have a situation that drives something more than just a topical coat of slurry or oil, do we have a plan to go in and actually hog that asphalt out and fix it? Because I know the last time around over on Curry, right in front of the motel, it looked fantastic. Well, then you start pulling up to the stop sign going north, and you start to see all the cracking and the alligatoring going on. So we spent money and time and effort and everything else on something that maybe we should have taken a step further. And I'd just like to make sure that we have a plan in place. This is fine to go with as far as a guide, but I would hope that we can step up and actually redirect some of this effort to areas that truly need to be worked out, come in with another 2 or 3 inch lift and really fix those areas. I think Mr. Jacobs or somebody brought up a good point. We've got a lot of high traffic areas in town now, and it's only going to go in one direction, and that is more traffic. So I think if we have the opportunity and we have the funds, we really ought to take a closer look at, rather than just coming in and slurry coating something, let's go in and fix that, either the substrate or the pavement, and get the biggest bang for our buck at this point in time. And that's really the only comment that I have. It's great, I think we need to do it, and let's get that project going.
Yeah, if I may, Jay and I had a lot of discussion about this before we put these areas onto the list. There's really 2 specific objectives here with these areas. One is there's certain areas with a little bit of preventive maintenance will extend the life of those areas. That's why you see some of these rehabilitations or these surface treatments in areas that really aren't that old and they're not in extremely poor condition, and that is so that we can do preventive maintenance on those and extend the lives. Otherwise, in a few years, they're going to be just like every other street. So that's one area. The second area is there's a lot of streets that maybe 75–80% of them are in fairly good condition and could use a surface treatment to, again, extend the life. It is our intent to add money into our normal operating budget next year to go back and replace that other 20% with a complete removal and replacement. So we are in the process of developing our next fiscal year budget, and we're going to try and budget money in there in addition to the SB1 funds to help do a complete rehabilitation on those specific areas before we do the surface treatment.
Okay, great, thank you. I think that's very important, and it's, the roads and the streets in the city of Tehachapi have been very contentious in the past. I know we've heard comments from the audience numerous times. Mr. Jim Wilhelm brought up potholes and road condition many, many different times. And going forward, if we've got that attention to those areas, as Don has stated, I think it's fantastic, and I think we ought to get on with it and make the city a better roadworthy area. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
One other comment, and I'll probably harp on it for as long as I can. Is there any chance of getting our own in-house equipment for small areas, for blanket patches where we can go ahead and grind out and put some asphalt down? And I don't know if it means that we've got to get a small drag and a small roller and a dump truck, or if we can get a surplus from military surplus, something like that. Those things do become available. If there's anything we can do in-house versus prevailing wage and equipment and bidding.
We do as much as we can in-house, and we do have a roller and small patches we can do, but anything really beyond that, the equipment and the expertise to do that is is really beyond what I think we want to try to tackle in-house.
Okay.
There's people that do this every day, and they're just far more efficient at it than we ever will be. And the equipment is very expensive as well.
Yes. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions from the council?
Okay.
Do I have a motion?
Motion on staff's recommendation.
I'll second it.
Moved and seconded on staff's recommendation. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Let the record show it was a 5-0 vote. Thank you. Police chief reports.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor Wiggins and council members. This evening, Officer Price will present to you an emergency abatement that was conducted at 517 Holly Street.
Honorable Mayor and council members, pursuant to the Tehachapi Municipal Code, emergency abatements may be conducted by the city when appropriate. The Municipal Code also requires us to have a hearing before the City Council following any such an abatement in order to determine whether or not code enforcement's actions were appropriate. On February 11, 2019, the property located at 517 Holly Street was inspected based on a complaint of dry tumbleweeds accumulated in the front yard. During the inspection of the property, it was found to be vacant and in foreclosure. In addition to the accumulation of dead tumbleweeds, there was also an unsightly overgrown hedge. A notice of violation was posted on the property, with a copy being mailed to the legal owner of record. A voicemail was left for Jason Chapman, the real estate agent representing the bank. Mr. Chapman was advised in this voicemail of violations and the required corrective action. On February 25th, 2019, Jason Chapman was contacted by phone. Mr. Chapman advised that he had passed on the previous warning to the bank in charge of the property and further advised to, quote, do what you gotta do. On March 13th, 2019, an abatement warrant was served on the property through the use of a private contractor. All dead or overgrown vegetation was removed from the property. Before I get to my recommendation, do we have anybody present who's an owner or has any vested interest in the property that wishes to contest this hearing?
I'd like to speak. I talked to Jason Chapman. Here's what I'm trying to understand is how much was it? How much did they get the lien for onto the title? My understanding was $7,000. So is that what it was?
Very close. The bank will have to pay all the citations that have been issued to the property. The actual taxpayer cost for the abatement was $600 was the invoice to the contract. Whenever I do an abatement like this, I follow the fee schedule we have outlined, which charges for inspection fees, photographs, recording costs, time to get an abatement warrant. All of these things cost the taxpayers money and are passed back on to the person through a lien. In addition to this, all of these citations that were issued to the property owner will be going on the lien as well.
Thank you.
I live on a block.
Excuse me,
People were
you need
dumping
to come.
tumbleweeds into this person's
You need to come
yard.
to the microphone, sir.
I mean, I can't see how this is $7,000. I can't see how this is $7,000. I mean, I live right behind this house. There's other houses that look in about the same condition or unkept. Why is this one targeted? And $7,000 to remove tumbleweeds? It just seems way absurd.
Again, the $7,000 is including fines that have been issued to the property during this time period. The actual abatement did not cost $7,000. And as far as other properties in the area, we are extremely busy trying to correct all of these. Typically, we have owners that will actually work with us, and we're far more sympathetic to property owners in the city rather than banks who express that they do not care about our community and that we should just do whatever we gotta do.
Thank you. Go ahead. Any other comments from the audience?
No, he's done.
You're done, sir. Go ahead.
So we just looked at the property and it's sold. So obviously cleaning up the neighborhood made it more appealing and this house is sold.
Thank you.
Can you give a name to put that on record, please? Who just spoke?
I apologize. Michelle Vance, city resident.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions from the audience? Council?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As you know, I have been a huge supporter of code enforcement. I always have been, and I think you guys do a very valuable service to our community. In this particular case, I drove by the property. This is, I believe, at the end of C Street, where, well, maybe not directly at the end, but one house over from C Street on Pauley. What I would like to see us do, those tumbleweeds don't grow in neighborhoods. They just don't. We need to go back to, and I have a fairly clear understanding of where those came from, knowing which way the wind was blowing. We need to go back to the property owner of the big field on the other side of Curry, and we need to tell them very clearly that they are going to have to take care of that lot. And that lot is what produces those tumbleweeds that then blow with an easterly wind right into the middle of the neighborhoods. And I don't, whether it's bank owned or it's just been sold or it's somebody's personal property, I don't think it's fair for the neighborhoods per se to be impacted by the open field area owners whose property is actually generating those tumbleweeds. They blow into the neighborhoods, and then these folks end up paying for it. I don't think that's fair. I've actually had another call from Jennifer's Terrace. Jennifer's Terrace, the folks that work over there called me up one day. They probably called you because they called me. And I did a drive-by, and this was, I believe, last fall. The tumbleweeds were up to their roof. Again, tumbleweeds don't grow in Jennifer Williams' front yard. They grow in the field across. And I think if we look at some of that, the next cycle around, where we apply the pressure where it needs to be applied, but we also back that up, and we go back to the property owners of vacant lots that produce those tumbleweeds and say, listen, folks, you're either gonna have to spray or you're gonna have to come out and brush hog this stuff, because we cannot continue to have massive amounts of tumbleweeds blowing, 2 streets in from the fields that are open and producing them. That's my only comment that I have.
With regards to that, we have been increasing our weed abatement program over the past 5 years. It was not quite what we wanted it to be when I came here. And our hope is that at some point we will not have so many issues with these vacant lots, because we're steadily becoming more aggressive with it. We don't want to be too aggressive in the beginning because people think we're going a little too far. But our goal is to eliminate these problems.
Yeah, and just think, if this was a private individual, I mean, let's just say that those blew into Joan's front yard. Joan would call you folks, and then somebody would try to figure out and back that up. Where did this stuff come from? And I just think it's appropriate that we take that, we apply what we've got going now today, we take care of this. But in the future, we back that up a little bit and we go back to the property owners of vacant lots and say, folks, there's things that you are going to have to start doing. And that's my only comment.
Thank you.
The tumbleweeds were not the only source of blight in the neighborhood. It sounds like the hedges and there was a complaint, and that was from the neighbors, and it's just overgrown. And it sounds like they were given plenty of notice to do that, except for the tumbleweed issue. There were other issues.
The issues were with the overgrown hedge. The complaint actually came in that we were taking on everyone else, and that this person was getting away with it.
I see.
And obviously that's not the case.
Yeah.
We're working hard on numerous properties. People just tend to only see what comes to them.
You've got a very tough job, and most people, if you ask them, cut your hedge, most of them would do that. A bank, if they can't get with it and go and take care of the property that they have repossessed or own or whatever, they're like another property owner, but they're also like a landlord or whatever. If the house is vacant, I applaud you for taking care of the situation, because I tell you, for every house we do this, There's 20 neighbors up and down the street that say, thank you very much, that suffered in silence the whole time.
And again, I'd like to point out that there's an enormous amount of effort that goes into trying to get voluntary compliance before we get to a citation standpoint. So I understand Mr. Davies' concern with the cost associated with this and the citations that were issued on this, but we go to an enormous effort to try and get compliance before citations are issued, even with banks. And they were non-responsive in this case, and this is where it got us.
You know, a few $100 early on with calling on the maintenance person, they could have stopped this early on. Now they got this extra money as a lien, so, but anyway, thank you for the effort.
Any other comments or questions from the council? I'll entertain a motion.
I'll entertain a motion that we approve number 11 for the emergency abatement at 517 Polly Street.
I have a second.
I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded as recommended by staff. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Let the record show it was a 5-0 vote. Thank you. City Manager's report.
Nothing this evening, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Davies?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I have something I need to talk about. I know it's not going to go over well, but tough. You're going to have to put up with it because I've had a lot of people call me. I'm going to direct this question to Mr. Councilman Tehachapi. Back in March 4th, we had a discussion about some harassment allegations. I'm not going to discuss that, but that evening you had an interview with Channel 17. And in your interview, you agreed with the corrective action. And the corrective action thing is that you were going to take the 2-hour bowling class. Have you done that, sir?
Yes, I have.
You have. Thank you. Has that been noted? Have we received confirmation?
I printed the certificate off.
Okay. Did you turn that into anybody, sir?
I didn't know that I was supposed to.
Well, I think we should. I mean, I attended a 3-day ethics class down, and I had to turn in my paperwork required by law when you...
Well, Mr. Davies, since you've caught me off guard tonight, if you want to really start talking about this, we're more than, we can go right on into this. Do we need to talk about this, Mr. Schroeder?
No, you can't get beyond the discussion that you just had, because you're going to get into the substance of it, and that's going to be an agenda item.
Mr. Hackey answered my question, and I'll go back to the people that asked me, and I appreciate you taking the class.
Yeah, I believe that Tyler, I don't even know where he works, Public Works, or whatever he's doing in the training group. He has a record of my training that when I hit the button after I took that program, he should have a record of that somewhere in his system.
Great, thank you, Mr. Hackey.
Thanks.
Mr. Smith?
Yes, I was happy to attend the Tehachapi Society Pilots meeting the other night, and it was very well attended, and I was happy to be there. There was a discussion about the build plane. I told them about our putting it on the agenda. It was going to be on approval for this evening. They were very pleased with that. They had a vote of their priorities amongst their members, and one of them was the highest priority, just by show of hands, was a lot of support for more communications with the city. So I'm going to try to attend more of the meetings. The airport's in my district, so I will reach out and try to attend as many meetings, or have, actually I know you attend, so try to get as many meetings with a city representative there. And it just leads to good communication, so that we're not trying to outguess what the other's doing, and I think it's very positive. There was a comment that the Pacific Coast Trail Guardian Angels, they're going to start up now, or already in progress, and they do use the park and that. And that the Guardian Angels have the gate codes, and sometimes they get out. So if you want to, now they said this would be a good time to change the codes, or however you handle that. And then And then the card access, we have card access or we don't? The gates. For the gates? Okay. Then there was a question on signage for when someone is driving a vehicle on the airport. Just the signage that maybe better delineates where vehicular traffic it should be versus aircraft and taxiways, I'm sorry. So if that'd be something you talk to the pilots and maybe at their next meetings and get the specific areas that they're concerned about. And then at the Westgate sensor, at certain times of the year, it should have a hood on it because the sun gets right in the sensor and the gate may stay open. So maybe at sunset, you might want to have a hood on it or something that would help that. And that's it, just some comments, but a very positive meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hickey?
You're going to come to me first, Madam Mayor.
Pardon?
You're going to come to me first rather than going to
I can go on. Whatever is your concern.
Thank you. I have a question for Mr. Garrett, and I've got a couple of other questions for some other folks. Are there any matters or issues, Mr. Garrett, that we are currently in discussion with the FAA on or involving the FAA that the council should be aware of?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
Are you aware of something?
I'm asking you, the question is to you. Are there any matters or issues currently being discussed or involving the FAA that the council should be aware of?
We are, as you know, still in the process of getting that EA finished up, so that's with the FAA. Along with that, there's some changes to the ALP, again, that's with the FAA. But that's really all that comes to mind at the moment.
Okay, thank you.
I think something like that, you should direct the city manager to put it on the agenda so staff can be ready and report. I'm sure Ashley has everything that she can remember as she's sitting there, but I would like to see that on the agenda, that kind of thing that you want to have a report on.
Fantastic, then let's just go ahead and put that on the agenda right now as I just presented it. If you need to write this down or if you need to go back and review the recording, are there any matters or issues currently being discussed or involving the FAA that the council should be aware of? And I'll wait for an answer at the next meeting. The next question regarding SB 1421. 1421 was legislation that was approved by the state of California. Mr. Schroeder, you can correct me if my dates are wrong on that, but it was the end of last year. Bakersfield has come up. Their union has basically tried to stop certain matters being released to the public. Have we, Mr. Garrett, taken a position or provided direction to anybody that may request anything under SB 1421, which is the peace officers' release of records? And it was in the news, Bakersfield. Oh, yeah, Mr. Schroeder.
The chief and I and Matt Murphy and his office are handling all of those. We've got a bunch of them. The ACLU, the LA Times, the Orange County Register, they're coming from all over the place. You're right, the Bakersfield Police Officers Association filed a lawsuit. They got an injunction allowing them not to give out that information. A local judge made that injunction. The Bakersfield Police Association eventually dropped that lawsuit last week, so that injunction has been lifted. The State Attorney General has his own injunction against it. He's filed in 5 or 6 different counties to stop the release of those documents. He has started giving them out. The chief went and his office went to a whole lot of work. I would have recommended that they hire somebody to do that. It took so much time. And then we stopped when the injunction came into effect. Judge Bradshaw issued the injunction locally. A local television station got caught in the middle of that, and we didn't provide them with the documents at first, but we have now. And we're going to continue to do that, even though the State Attorney General's office has their own injunction in place, determining that it's not a retroactive piece of legislation. But locally, we've decided to just go ahead and start releasing the information.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. I think that that's important for the community to understand because it does add a layer of transparency to the policing process. And there have been the court injunctions in other jurisdictions. I know that Los Angeles, after doing some more reading, after I was queried on this by somebody in the community, Los Angeles actually had a judge that said you cannot withhold the information. I was a little bit surprised at some of that language that was presented in my readings, but nevertheless, thank you for the clarification on that. So if we have somebody in the community that is interested in past records associated, they can. Now, how does that process work? Mr. Schroeder, does this come through a public records request? Or
Yes, public records request. That's all it takes.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's the question. The only question I had on that. I do have two additional agenda items, but I'm going to read those tonight because I think it's important. We've changed the schedule on providing agenda items to staff and then getting them on the docket for the meeting. We went from sort of a Wednesday, Thursday to now no later than I believe it's Tuesday at noon or somewhere in that ballpark. So what I'm going to start doing with my agenda items going forward, I'm just going to present those at the city council meeting for the record, so it'll be brought up again, not for discussion, but purely for the record, so we can get that on the agenda for the next meeting. And I think that that's a very good process that gets that information out there and available. So the two items that I have on top of the FAA concern is I would like to propose on the agenda for the following meeting, and we can always go back, or I can actually just give you my copy if that would help. I think it's important that we establish a balanced budget ordinance to ensure that any enterprise fund that creates more than a 15% surplus or suffers a 15% shortfall during any fiscal year receives attention/action from the council to direct staff to either reduce the funds being collected from our citizens via utility bills or to require an immediate plan of corrective action to increase revenues and ensure any budget shortfalls are minimized. And that's important. It's important for us as a council to be listening to the citizens in our community. If we have not got things right as a council or as a city, if we're overbilling, I know there was a lot of discussion talking about water rates. When the water rates went back, a year ago, or maybe 2 years ago now, when those water rate increases happened, there was a lot of outcry on that from residential service. The commercial folks ended up taking a little more of a hit on that, but they had more demand for water. Nevertheless, we had a $2 million surplus in the water department, and we also had a $2 million surplus in the sewer department. That surplus was then applied to the police station to build that. So nevertheless, I think it's important that we adopt an ordinance that says that if we are collecting funds greater than what is driving the cost of actually undertaking the endeavor, we need to revisit that. If we have enterprise funds that are short, airport fund, perfect example, we need to take a very assertive position and make sure that we are doing the best we can do for the community and make sure that the enterprise fund is made whole. So that is my agenda item. Again, I'll provide this to you folks on that. I would also like to put on the agenda for next week, we need to move all of our future closed session meetings to the 6 p.m. mark. And I know a lot of municipalities and a lot of service districts actually do that. They hold their closed session, 10 minutes, 15 minutes prior to the start time of the meeting. And I think that we would benefit as a community to have us go into closed session. We don't go into closed session all the time, but when we do, it would make it a little bit easier for the public to understand the outcome of those closed session meetings that Mr. Schroeder, as a city attorney, presents to the public, his take on that. So what I would like to present on the agenda for next meeting, move all future closed session meetings to the 6 p.m. mark, and the outcome of the meeting can then be reported to the public during the regular session meeting. And I think we would benefit as a community on that. And Madam Mayor, that's all I have for tonight. Thank you very much.
I'm just asking for clarification. If we move the closed session items to 6 p.m., or do you want it prior to 6 p.m.?
Well, that's an agenda item.
Okay, all right. I just wanted clarification.
We'll discuss that. Yeah.
Thank you very much. All right.
But plus or minus about 10 minutes, because a lot of our meetings are 10 minutes, so.
Thank you. Mrs. Popencourt.
I have just a question. When I was going over the agenda item, there were some repairs on sidewalks on the south side of Curry Lane between Tucker and Elm Street. And I asked Mr. Garrett, I go, why are they doing repairs on that side when the north side looks terrible? And so maybe you could explain that to people, because I thought that was quite interesting, because the other side is in desperate need of repair.
Right, so a lot of times, grant funds come with strings. Actually, they always come with strings attached. And so in this case, the proposal was to create enhancements or fill in pockets on the north side of Cherry Lane between Tucker and Elm Street. So curb, gutter, sidewalks, and streetlights as a package on the south side. Rather than piecemeal here, piecemeal there, we want to fill in things. So, but typically, the grant money comes with strings attached, and a lot of times it's a package deal. So if we could make up our own rules as we go, and we know what's best for our city, obviously, we do things a little differently, that's for sure, maybe a lot differently in a lot of cases. But that was a requirement imposed on us because of the package deal with the grant agency.
Yeah, because I was going, okay, that's not the side that needs to be done, that's the opposite side. But I have nothing further, thank you.
All right, thank you, and I don't have anything, so at this point, we are not going into a closed session this evening, and I will ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion?
Second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you for coming.
Sir.